Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines here. Stablecoins can create a revolution from below. Brian Brooks has that to say and so much more. You're going to want it. Dominos are falling for Ripple and XRP. One down and one to go. We're going to want every bit of that. And a disaster for the SEC and the SEC versus Ripple. Listen, we got that and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, it is $1.13 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 1%. Bitcoin, 28,000, almost on the nose and change here. And we see 1643 and change for Ethereum. And we see Tether market cap at 83.3 billion plus. Number 5 spot is XRP at 52 cents this morning. Although we're off by 0.9 on the 24-hour, we're up by 5.1 on the 7-day. Look, as we get started, I want to ask you guys to make a call to action for me. I don't often do this, but I want you guys to reach out to Miles Franklin for precious metals. There is a phone number I want you to call underneath of this video, and I want you to tell them that Brad Kimes from Digital Perspectives sent you, and you're going to get the best prices on gold, eagles, gold, I'm telling you, of all kinds of different sizes, whether they're quarter ounce, tenth of an ounce, you name it. They have the best prices over spot that you're going to find in this market. But I want you to tell them you need to use the code DIG Gold, D-I-G Gold, ladies and gentlemen. And I tell you what, I don't feel really good about this market I'm investing in crypto unless I've got a way to hedge it. And the way I hedge it is to buy physical gold and hold it in my hand at my house. That's what I'm doing, and I'm doing it with Miles Franklin, and I'm asking all of you, make that call underneath the video. Tell them that Brad Kimes sent you. Use the code DIGGOLD and get the best prices over spot on gold and silver that there is to get. I'll tell you that. Link underneath the video, or the number, rather. Let's take a look at this very quickly. We have a lot to go over. Let's see how quickly we can get it done today. Project Mandala plus R3 plus core to platform equals XRP in digital assets. It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to walk you through it right now. Shout out to Wall Street Bulls for that. And 801 right here. Give them a follow. It says, the envisioned compliance by design architecture could enable more efficient cross-border transfer of digital assets, including CBDC's tokenized deposits. It could also serve as the foundational compliance layer for legacy, nascent, wholesale, and retail payment systems. Measures could include quantifiable, configurable foreign exchange rules as well as anti-money laundering and counterfeiting, the financial terrorism, AML, CFT measures. It says here, Project Mandala aligns with Financial Stability Board 2023 priority actions for achieving G20 targets for enhancing cross-border payments in the area of promoting an efficient legal, regulatory, supervisory environment for cross-border payments while maintaining their safety, security, and integrity. Now, this is the stuff we want to see, and we know here, Project Mandala from BIS, stay with me here, shows R3 in the mix, core to core to vault database, right? We know it's right there in the middle. I'm moving quick because some of this you may already know. We know R3's right there. R3 back in 2018 said explicitly on their own site, which is still there today, if it wasn't accurate, they took it down, right? Facilitate global payments on Corda with XRP, the first settlement mechanism. They obviously will bring in other digital assets as well, but that is very exciting. Then there's this. Long-term Ripple partner Cross River Bank officially joins FedNow. And you can see it right here. And just in case you haven't seen it, you're new to the space, back all the way in 2014, Cross River Bank integrates Ripple for real-time international payments. This is the stuff we want to see while we're waiting for the U.S. government to get off the sideline and do what they're going to do, which I believe has always been intentional, to wait until the 11th hour to drop what they're going to do in a way of crypto regulation and legislation, because they are the largest economy in the world. I do believe that is the plan, as much as I don't care for it. So here we see the SEC lost big. Bill Morgan says the breakdown is a sweeping defeat in the Ripple case here. He points out a couple things very quickly here. One, there's no controlling question of law. Two, there was no substantial ground for differences of opinion. So that is of the mix. And I think there was one more point he made throughout this as well, if I could find it again very quickly. Let me just go to Bill's tweet. I think I had it right here. I have it right here. I do have it right here. So there it is. And three, an interlocutory appeal would not materially advance the ultimate termination of the litigation, a complete loss by the SEC on every element. How about that? Totally smashed. We love it. Then we also have here Jeremy Hogan, who stated, the recent order as a disaster for the SEC, but other legal commentators are urging the community to temper its excitement for now. And I believe that's because we know that the agency SEC doesn't embarrass very easily. If it was any other situation, just like John Deaton had mentioned as well, he'd lean 90% into a settlement. But with Gary Gensler and the SEC and the actions they've taken till now, what's to say that they won't drop the case against Brad and Chris and then come back with a general appeal, but we can't figure out what in the world that they would appeal because Judge Torres has essentially issued this denial of this motion in a manner that John Deaton describes as bulletproof to appeal. So we are now in a holding pattern between now and April 23rd, I believe is the date that we're looking for, on when they will be going to court, per se, right? So we'll have to see what happens there. We will keep you up to date as we get more information. But until then, I bet it's going to be a big standoff, right? But let's take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Brooks, as you know, former Office of Comptroller of Currency here, all around extremely brilliant man, right? Also a musician, a fairly good musician too, Brian. And love to jam with him and Chris Giancarlo. That would be a lot of fun. Nevertheless, it says here, we've heard a lot about de-dollarization of late, but listen to what Brian Brooks says about the importance of stablecoins and how they could re-dollarize the world by creating a revolution from below. Listen how he states this.
Stablecoins are simply digital representations of dollars held on deposit in U.S. banks. So the dollars themselves don't move, but the instrument by which someone is able to access dollars doesn't require a local bank account. And that's important for the United States because it creates a revolution from below in terms of dollar demand. So in the very countries whose leaders would like to drop the dollar, their billions of citizens demand dollars. The only problem we have, and the reason this is a good Federalist Society topic, is currently the administration is incredibly hostile to crypto in general and to stablecoins in particular. And that is why ranking member Maxine Waters, after 18 months of bipartisan work, tried to torpedo Patrick McHenry's stablecoin bill just a couple of months ago. Without a clear regulatory framework that specifies who can issue stablecoins, whether deposit insurance is available for stablecoins, and the manner in which stablecoins can be transmitted both domestically and internationally, without that kind of framework, it's highly unlikely that dollar stablecoins will succeed in the mission of re-dollarizing the world's economy. But at a time like we're in today, re-dollarization is really a critical urgency. And so I would just urge everyone on the call to spend some time looking at the McHenry stablecoin bill as well as his market structure bill to understand why market structure is important. Without these networks, stablecoins can't exist, but without sound regulation of stablecoins, their reserve assets, their FDIC insurance status, and similar things, this revolution from below, which is so good for our country, might never occur. So, Jason.
Wow, that is extremely powerful. And what he's talking about here is if you get the right market structure bill, along with stablecoin bill put through, right? Or at least regulation, legislation, however you want to say it. If you get that stuff in place, you could actually undermine the government's trying to de-dollarize from the US dollar by creating a demand from the citizens within these countries, knowing that it's the best dollar for them to hold over the one in their own country. This is the former office, comptroller of currency, the head of comptroller of currency here. This guy understands what stable coins can do. They can create a demand. And think about, I'll tell you, when I hear him talk and say this might not mean a lot to other people. And sometimes you got to make the video you know you need to make. And today's that day. This tells me that stable coins with a market structure bill and a stable coin bill that's done right could create stable coins to act like a sponge and soak up the printed money and liquidity around the world by creating a new efficiency and demand for those dollars. Imagine that. That could turn things around and keep us from headed towards that cliff he talked about just a few weeks ago. Now, here's an interesting thing. Now, we've talked about the Howey test a lot, and you know we've talked about the Reeves test a lot. When something is a note, ladies and gentlemen, I even spoke to a prominent attorney while we were at the proper party, who will remain nameless, but still highly respected. And I asked, hey, do you think the Reeves test is on the table if we go to the Supreme Court? He says, he said, honestly, I don't know, but I don't see it maybe playing as big a role in this case, pending where we're sitting at currently, right? Which certainly makes even more sense today with the denial of the motion for the SEC. But however, he did state, there's still something, a token project or tokens and projects are going to have to be affected at some point by the Reeves test, because by nature, when something is a note, will need to be addressed in some regard based on the characteristics of that particular token and that particular lawsuit, albeit what it is. So it is not off the table yet. But interestingly enough here, in this conversation, what we're going to learn is that it is suggested that through legislation, we may not need a brand new piece of legislation, but merely an amendment to the definition of security to Howey test, and merely an amendment to this to the legislation and the Reeves test, and amend that through legislation to have it say what it needs to in both to cover the gap that currently exists legally. Take a listen to this. It's extremely interesting.
Two things to note. One is the questions were amazing from our participants. I would love to be in a room with you all. I would learn a lot. So hopefully some of you go to FedSoc events that are in person. I'd love to meet you. Fantastic questions. The other item is, where will the legislation end up? I think it'll end up in a much more simple form, right? I think we're going to see Howey and Reeves by legislation, a more tailored version applying to digital assets that is tailored specifically. So we'll see a legislative regime, in a sense, supplant those court decisions defining investment contract. That's a very simple fix, right? Just change the definition of security. So it's just one section of that needs to be changed of the 33 Act. Secondly, on the commodity side, I think we can also just see merely a change to the definition of commodity, and it solves for 90% of the issues that the FIT Act is trying to solve for. So I'm an Occam's razor sort of guy. I think because we have pretty simple solutions that are readily available, I think those solutions are the likely outcome and maybe the preferable one.
Wow. And Occam's razor is essentially, to just really simplify it, is basically just think of the phrase like when you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras, right? When you have all things being equal, choose the obvious, right, than the latter, right? Than the unobvious, right? Less obvious. So that is extremely interesting to me and very compelling to think, wow, Congress could go in, instead of passing a full-on brand new piece of legislation with papers and pages and pages and pages of this and that and the other, and make a simple change to a paragraph in Howey and a simple change inside of Reeves and the definition in these things, and it's done. Most of it could be done. Imagine that. Imagine how quickly that could possibly get done over passing an entire piece of legislation. Then I want to remind you and leave you with this. Remember when Brad Garlinghouse celebrated Ripple, as we all did, Ripple is now fully licensed to provide digital payment token services in Singapore through the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is the central bank there. Ripple is committed to delivering real-world crypto solutions for businesses in APAC, right? So this is extremely exciting, but it made me think instantly when I thought of this, and I shared this in a DPMG the other night. It made me think of Bob Way back in the day when he said, it only takes two. You get two banks using XRP as a solution between one another, and you are going to see the rest of the banking world and finance world have to deal with the fact that you either fall in line with this new solution or you get cannibalized, much in the way. And I use cannibalized just as Christine Lagarde did when she was the managing director of the IMF when she talked about this very notion. That's how powerful this technology is, right? Then she went on to highlight how Circle and Ripple were two companies in this space that were really working to be within the system. And I think here we are one down and one to go. The dominoes are falling. And Singapore has just issued this full license. And this is incredible to me because now I start to wonder who will be the next domino to fall and how quickly will it take before they start using the utility of XRP between the two of them. And then after that, how quickly will the dominoes start to fall at the central bank level because of that utility? I'm not talking about price. I'm talking about the dominoes falling for utility. Singapore is all in. How long before the next one? Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I couldn't be more excited. I'll catch all of you on the next one.